Hello and welcome. This is the continuation of Craniopagus by Copper Rose, Chapter 4. "We have to take him to the hospital," was the first thing they heard when they started to wake up. "Look at him!" "And tell them what?" another voice demanded back. "All his clothes are covered in blood, but he doesn't have a scratch on him. They'll call the police for sure, and then what are we supposed to tell them?" "I'm sorry, I really didn't mean." "Would you stop apologizing?" the second voice snapped at the third. "We all saw him. There's clearly something wrong with him. He threw a knife at Elias, for Christ's sake. Honestly, you should have clocked him for good measure." "Really? 'Cause I think we should give him a medal," another voice scoffed. "Actually, I think we should finish the job instead of letting the old bastard run with his tail between his legs." Johnny groaned at their bickering and the pounding of his head. "You sure fucked this up fast, huh, Sims?" The silence that fills the room was somehow louder than the arguing that had come before. It took Johnny a second, but it dawned on him that not only had he somehow found himself in the driver's seat, but that he'd very much said that out loud. The assistants all almost certainly assumed he was John at the moment, because who else would he be? Which means that he's who he'd have to be, at least for the time being. That was alright. Johnny was a professional. He lived for the stage almost as much as he lived for bloodshed. He could pretend to be his nerdy little double. He already had plenty of practice when he played Lift on stage. Playing John would be easy. Slowly, he sat himself up. He rubbed the back of his head and found that his hair there was wet, covered in blood, he suspects, which would make him even more of a mess than he already was. It was right where his skull had apparently cracked open. It had already healed, and it certainly wasn't the first time it had ever happened to him, but it wasn't pleasant. Not to mention that John would be unfamiliar with such a feeling. He might even briefly died from the damage, which was probably why they all looked so upset. It was surprising that a shove from one of their assistants could do so much damage, though. She was a cop, but she was still human, he assumed. Unless, of course, they weren't human at all, which he was quickly suspecting might be the case. That may be a conversation he needed to have with John at some point. Speaking of John, he was there and awake. Johnny could feel him, but he was quiet. There was waves of fear, frustration, and embarrassment coming from the other man. He was ashamed to have lost control like that, but also terrified to have yet another brush with death. That wasn't surprising, but if he was going to have to be Johnny DeVille, he was going to have to get over it fast. Not that he would become Johnny. No, Johnny more than planned to take his body back. There was no way he would lose his body or his consciousness to someone like John. He might have liked the kid and might even felt bad for him, but he wouldn't lose himself for him. "John?" A soft voice got his attention. He didn't even have to look up to know it was Martin saying it. He was slowly approaching him like Johnny was a frightened animal that might run at the slightest movement. Your head, it healed really fast after you fell, but well, I still think we need to be sure you're okay, so..." "Martin!" Tim scolded the other man, grabbing his arm and holding him firm before he got too close. "I told you to stay away from him! He's going psycho, he said so himself." Martin wore a distressed look. He didn't fight being held, but he did glance between Tim and John, almost like he was being forced to choose between the two. "He wouldn't hurt us," he insisted. "Elias is one thing, but..." "But what?" the other man demanded. "Did you miss the part where he was taken by the circus, and now he's back, and he's clearly different?" Both Martin and Johnny made disapproving sounds to this. "I'm not..." Johnny started to froze up. "Fuck, how did John sound again? Kinda like a posh prick, right?" Martin spoke up before he could really recall. "Tim, he's been through a traumatic experience. It's like Basira said, he's probably going through shock now, or did you forget that?" "Did you forget? We found more of those knives in his pockets." He let Martin go, then he made himself a barrier between the two of them, like he thought they might rush to each other's sides. "Exactly how many people did you expect to stab today, boss?" Johnny visibly ruffled at the question. He knew how he would respond to that question. It was simple, really. You could never have too many knives. A certain Marquis had taught the mechanisms that lesson some time ago, but John, how would he respond? Rather unhelpfully, the man was still quiet, not giving anything that might have been a good answer to the question. It was honestly kind of rude. As far as Johnny was concerned, he would have walked John through dealing with the mechs. Unless, of course, it was funnier not to do so, he supposed. Perhaps they were both the problem here. "Shit, I think he actually might be broken," he heard Melanie say, which suddenly made him realize that he hadn't responded to the question and had actually sat there staring off into space for, he actually didn't know how long, if he was being honest. "Can we please take him to the hospital now?" Martin insisted. He looked worried and was wringing his hands nervously more and more the longer they stood there doing nothing. I don't know if that's a good idea. What if he gets violent again while we try to get him there? You want a fight to break out in a moving car or the tube? Basira said, looking at him with her own kind of worried expression. It still wasn't quite right from the memories John seemed to have of her, but that didn't totally matter because Johnny was almost certain he knew that face. Had known it for a long time, in fact. He couldn't say it, not here, not in front of the rest of the archive staff. Later, when they were alone, they would have a conversation, which may or may not end in him cutting an old friend open. Look, just call Daisy and get her here, Melanie suggested, looking to Basira expectingly. She can help us get him to the hospital safely. If he freaks out again, she'll fuck him up. Easy fix. Maybe I don't want someone to fuck him up, Basira snapped, making them all recoil in surprise. She seemed to realize her mistake and pull back immediately. Look, Yeah, we know. You're sorry, Tim huffed. You've been weird all day, and it's starting to piss me off. Tim, that's not fair. Martin immediately stepped in, trying to defend her. It's been a weird day for everyone, and she said just the other night she's been having headaches and strange dreams. Oh, here we go. He rolled his eyes and threw his hands up. What's that supposed to mean? I don't know, Martin. What do you think it means? Tim demanded. Couldn't it be that I'm just sick of hearing you defend our shit boss or the cop that threatened us? No! That's not... Could you for once stop trying to protect the people who treat you like shit? What's next? You gonna make Elias a cup of tea? Have lunch with that thing from the tunnels? Hey, Johnny growled. He staggered to his feet and Basira was immediately by his side, helping him up. Her skin was hot against his own, and he knew in that moment that she wasn't Basira. But he couldn't focus on that in that moment. Right then, he had other things on his mind. That's enough, he told Tim, his voice firm and his glare dead focused at him. You can be pissed at me all you want, but Martin didn't do anything wrong here. No, of course not, Tim scoffed. Not like he's been defending you for the last 5 minutes. You brought back a bunch of weapons into the archives, stabbed our boss, then fucking died. Your heart wasn't beating at all. Did you know that? What? Oh, like you don't hate him as much as I do. He lost his temper almost immediately, and with it the little of John's posh accent he had managed to find was going with it. Fuck, he really wished he had practiced his cadence before they had gotten to the Institute. He could hardly do warm-ups now, they'd all think he'd lost it. Luckily, Tim seemed to miss the slip-up, more focused on his overwhelming anger at the other man. Did you forget the part that killing him would kill all of us? You think I wouldn't have strangled the man by now if I really thought it wasn't an option? But I'm not looking to kill all the people in the Institute, unlike you. Then again, you apparently bounce right back from death, so it's not like it matters to you. I mean, we don't actually know if it's not an option, Melanie piped up before Johnny could defend himself. You all might be keen to believe that he's telling the truth, but I'm pretty sure he's full of shit. I say we each take one of John's knives, go up to Elias's office, and Caesar his fucking ass. Martin pitched the bridge of his nose, and Tim crossed his arms and glared at her, making it clear that this wasn't the first time she'd made this kind of suggestion. Possibly not even the first time since John had been knocked out, which was saying something given he'd only been out for about 5 minutes. In spite of himself, Johnny couldn't help the crooked smile from forming on his face. You are an extraordinarily angry person, do you know that? Melanie gawked at him and practically growled in response. Johnny hadn't heard many humans genuinely growled. Johnny growled sometimes. Some of the other mechs did too, but most humans didn't. They just didn't have that kind of anger in them. But Melanie King, this woman had a lot of anger in her. A lot more than he realized until she was letting it out. You want to see anger? She demanded, and immediately she was swinging at him. He hadn't meant to rile her up, but it occurred to him that at that moment there really wasn't any way for that comment to be received other than upsetting her. To be honest, he wasn't even really mad about it, though he was surprised on how much it hurt. For being such a tiny woman, she did hit hard. Her first blow hit him square in the jaw, and he swore it loosened a tooth. The second broke his nose with a loud crack. The third went to his gut and knocked the wind out of him. That was around the time John decided he was done being quiet. Johnny, this is fucking painful, he pestered him. Either run or at least stop her. As if he would ever run. He caught her wrist the next time she swung at him and repeated the act when she swung her other fist. She tugged to free herself, but with only a little bit of difficulty, he held her firm. "That's enough," he warned her. His voice lost anything that might have sounded like the John they knew. He thought that it might have startled her and get her to settle down, but it only seemed to have the opposite effect. Melanie looked like she was about to go as feral as Johnny normally might have when he went into battle. It was admirable, and for the briefest of moment he couldn't help but think what a good mechanism she would have made, if he were to be so cruel as to gift immortality to yet another poor soul. And then she kneed him in the balls, and suddenly he was decidedly more pissed off than anything else. "Relax, don't hurt her," John pleaded, like the bleeding heart he was. But Johnny wasn't as sentimental. He wouldn't kill her, but oh, was he going to hurt her. He released one of her arms, but it was only to make it easier when he brought the other one down over his knee. The crack was audible, and the scream that came with it was agonizing. It was followed by a chorus of others screaming at the side of her elbow, bending in the wrong direction. He let go of her then, before kicking her hard in the chest, sending her tumbling away from him and onto the ground. She clutched her arm, both screaming and struggling to breathe at once. "My arm! I'll fucking kill you!" Alright, so she hadn't learned her lesson then. He balled his fist and took a step towards her, and then two things happened at once. John screamed in his head, "Johnny, fucking stop, you've made her point, please, just stop." Before he could consider this, the wind was knocked out of him yet again. A hard body slammed into him, and he found himself on the ground all over again. Much to his surprise, Martin had shoulder-checked him, slamming into him as hard as he could. Why was this kind of hot? Oh no. That was not good. He most certainly did not have the time to unpack all of that at this moment. "Have you completely lost your mind?" Martin yelled at him, but he was far too gone, stuck in his own head and absolutely kicking himself, though arguably for the wrong reasons. Not far from them, Tim was beside Melanie, looking between her arm and Johnny. He looked more scared than he did angry. It was hard to tell that fear was for Melanie or of Johnny, but he was clearly trying to ease her up off the floor and away from her assailant. Melanie was still screaming. She was clearly in pain, but she was still making threats, saying on how she'll plan to kill him. It was honestly concerning. Even Johnny knew when to accept his limits when they so rarely arose, but she seemed keen to attack until there was nothing left of her. "Something is very wrong with you." He said it not to be rude, but because he knew it to be the truth. He didn't know what it was exactly, but he still knew something was hateful was buried inside her, and it was making her a danger to both herself and others. "Fuck you!" she screamed, still fighting as Tim dragged her out of the archives. "Something is wrong with you, you absolute lunatic!" "Martin!" Tim called out as he forced her way. "Let's go! I'll carry her out. You call emergency services." The bigger man looked between Tim and John. He looked a blend of worry and almost defeated the longer he looked at John. Go on ahead," he sighed. I'll make the call, but give me a minute." Tim gave him a hard stare and a scoff. "Fine." Before, he turned to look at Basira instead. "Do not leave them alone together, and if he attacks again, fucking do something about it this time." Basira didn't respond, only watched as he continued out of the archive. They could still hear Melanie screaming and fighting for a while as she was dragged away, but then Johnny had stood back up, though as he did, Martin had noticeably stepped away from him. Surely he didn't think he'd actually hurt him. Then again, he hadn't really done anything to make him assume otherwise, had he? Please don't." John was practically begging at this point. "You've done enough. Just leave the archive or hide in my office, anything. Just please don't hurt him." Shit, John too? Did everyone assume he was just a monster? He wasn't going to hurt Martin. Martin was half the reason they were here. "Martin, He began, trying to be delicate to find the words to explain himself, but none were coming. "Save it." He didn't yell this time, but he was firm. "I understand that something must have happened when the circus took you, something you haven't told us yet, but this isn't okay. You can't just attack people." "She attacked me first." Johnny insisted, but felt almost like a child as he said it. The glare Martin was giving him didn't make the feeling any less. "You stab Elias and broke Melanie's arm. I don't know how, but you're suddenly rather good at fighting." "Well, for all you know, I was already rather good at fighting." Both Martin and John scoffed at the very suggestion. And the way you looked when you broke her arm. Martin shuddered then, looking disgusted. He had seen that look before, but never in his life had he felt so terrible to see it. You enjoyed that. Don't deny it. We could all see it. So forgive me if I don't buy this excuse of she started it. He resisted the urge to point out that she had, in fact, started it. Instead, he looked down and away from him. He never felt ashamed to have gotten in a fight before. He could only assume it was John's doing. That had to be the reason, because Johnny DeVille most definitely would not feel shame for something as silly as upsetting some mortal. Even if that mortal was handsome and had cute freckles and could absolutely take him to the ground by just slamming into him and, oh gods no, this could not be happening. You cannot be serious right now. I forbid this. Absolutely not. Johnny couldn't respond. He just stood there, wide eyes like a deer in headlights, because fuck, what had this nerd done to him? He didn't get crushes, and he certainly didn't get crushes on weak like mortals. Martin sighed, seeming absolutely resolute. Look, Tim and Melanie are probably gonna call the cops if Elias hasn't already, of course. I don't know if there's anything I can do to help you in the meantime. Maybe I can get you some clean clothes? All I really know is that you need to cool off. I don't know what happened to you, but you need this out of your system now. He was already turning and walking towards the exit. It felt bad to see him go, like he was being abandoned. Where are you going? He dared to ask. He wouldn't blame him if he was running away, but there was a part of him that he really hoped was actually the part of John that desperately wanted him to stay. I have to catch up to Tim. Then I guess I'll see you about getting some clean clothes. He shrugged without turning around, like it was obvious. I'll be back in a little bit. Try to clean yourself up. There are some old showers on the other side of the building. They're rarely used and the water pressure is pretty bad. At least they were before the Prentice attack. But it's better than nothing. I'll bring you what I can find, but I don't actually have much that could fit you. Johnny just nodded to all of it, really. A shower would be nice, as would some clean clothes. Moreover, he just needed to be left alone for a little while. He and John needed to talk, he suspected. So, as Martin left, Johnny followed behind. He only paused for a moment to look back. Basir was still there, silent and watching it all unfold, with far too much interest. He needed to talk to them too, but they would have to deal with that later. For now, he marched up the stairs. And that is it for today. I am so sorry. The audio production is all over today. I've had 4 different days that I had to sit down and actually record. Holidays are taking up a lot of time, like a lot of time. It's a miracle that this got done today. Let me know how you think of everything and give kudoses to Copper Rose, and I hope everyone has a good day, and as always, drink water! It's needed.